I played guitar recently and found this riff. Well, sounds not bad, so let's see what I can do with it. I add drums and bass and get this music part. Well, I guess it sounds like something I could work with, but right now it feels like Red Hot Chili Peppers cosplay, like I am John Frusciante somewhere in LA. And honestly, I wish I was John Frusciante somewhere in LA. But as OLESьь somewhere in Kiev, I think I will turn this track from this funky vibe more towards indie pop or punk. So I keep jamming around to find bridge, chorus and other parts of this track. Well, I decided to settle on this primitive chord pattern that we have heard thousands of times, almost in every second song, just to keep it simple and, have fun, because there is a lot of things that you can come up for this chord. So yeah, that is gonna be my chorus. Hello, beautiful. Now, that is gonna be my chorus. Since I have the harmony, I'm going to play around a bit to find a catchy melody for these chords. And here we go, I found something interesting. The chorus melody can be built on atonal musical intervals. I mean, for this chord C, we sing B note. For this chord G, we sing A note. For this chord AM, we sing B note again. And for a chord EM, we sing G note, we go to a tertiary. And that is how we get some pretty unusual interaction between harmony and melody. Like... eyes, new brain, new hair. I believe I've just found the idea of the song. I redesigned myself. Yeah, let's think about it. I brainstormed this idea and got the concept. So here is what's going on in this song. There is some abstract person who believes that someone, or maybe everyone, is much better than him. So he goes through some kind of self-making process, comparing himself to his reference, which is a person, of course, and then he comes to that reference and presents a new version of himself. So this is what chorus is about. I redesigned myself. Like, look at me, I'm a completely new person. Next, I'm going to record vocals and doubles, and since my timbre doesn't match this track, I'm going to use my recordings to generate a different voice using AI. And the whole lyrics sound like that.
Hey, I redesigned myself. New skin, new brand, new hair. Change every single sound. And I came to tell you, hey, I redesigned myself. I'm almost dead, new brand. Killed every single sound. And I came to tell you.
There is an interesting life hack how to tell a story with music that I would like to highlight. So this is the second guitar line for the chorus. As you can see, it's pretty positive and it brings this positive atmosphere into the chorus. And I like the way it sounds, but now when I've done the lyrics, seems like it isn't a positive song, because this guy in the song has self-esteem issues, he's going through a difficult transformation, and to point it out, I want to add some tragic notes to the chorus without changing its core. That's why the first part will be as I showed before, and in the second part I will change it to this. Of course, it's all subjective, but for me, these notes sound more dramatic and they bring some kind of anxiety, as a reminder that, in fact, despite the funny punk music, we're dealing with something serious here. Now, I think I've achieved all my arrangement goals, so I can mix and master this track to finish my song. So, on my kick drum, I use some rear EQ for tone correction, then UAD's pull tech as my main equalizer, and the stock Reaper distortion as a clipper. On the snare, I use a transient shaper to reduce the sustain level a bit, then an SSL style EQ from Acoustic Audio, then a corrective EQ and pull tech, and the stock Reaper distortion as well. These two sends I use for parallel processing of kick and snare. Here I use Devil Lock from Sound Toys as a distortion and the BX as a compressor. I learned this trick from Andrew Sheps. On the overheads I do some EQ correction and that's it. This is parallel drum processing. I use the API as a parallel drum compressor, EQing its input with the pull tech. I also use the decapitator as a parallel distortion, impulse response of some room as a reverb for overheads only, and reverb from waves as a reverb for the whole drum kit. I use drum room preset here from Dave Darlington. On bass I use UAD's pull tech EQ, then a corrective EQ, then UAD's Fairchild compressor and Acoustic Audio's SSL style EQ. And now you might ask, what the hell is going on here? Why would you raise the low end, then reduce it and then push them up again? Well, let's be honest, this is an example of bad mixing. I did it because I mixed this track over 3 days with long pauses between mixing sessions. So one day I raised the bass, the next day I felt something wrong, so I lowered it, and in the end of the mix I raised it again. If you start mixing that way, you definitely need to go to the arrangement or recording session and find a different bass tone. Like to record it again with different amplifier, or record a different bass instrument, or change the library you're using. So never mix as I mixed this bass here. I use Decapitator as parallel distortion for bass and microshift to make it a little wider. For vocals, I use Acoustic Audio SSL style EQ again, then UAD's LA2A and some corrective EQ. These are sends for the vocal. Here I use pull tech LA2A pull tech trick. I boost high frequencies and reduce lows on the first pull tech, then I compress it with LA2A, and then I do completely opposite settings on the second pull tech, and then I mix it with the original track. On this send I use the doubler from Waves and the Pensado vocal preset to make my vocals wider. I also equalize it a bit with SSL E channel, and then I use Waves J37 as a slap delay. On the vocal bass I use the ESR from Waves and TDR compressor. On the guitar I use Acoustic Audio SSL style equalizer again. I use it a lot here. Then I use the Kramer tape machine from Waves to colorize the sound a little bit, then emulation of the Helios equalizer from Waves. On the guitar bass I use UED's 1176 not for compression but rather for tone enhancement. There are two compressors but each of them works only for one channel. I wanted them stereo independent. For the guitar riff I use microshift as a parallel chorus, and for all guitars I use a spring impulse response as a reverb. I guess I found this one on some sound engineer forum. The same chain is on my lead guitar. Corrective EQ, SSL and Helios from Waves. I also use UED's tape echo as a delay and reverb for lead guitar. I'm gonna skip the synths and pads section because it's not interesting at all. Let's check what's going on my master. First, I use Universal Audio Fairchild as a parallel compressor for the mix bass, then Acoustic Audio SSL style bass compressor, then I use UED's pull tech to boost the lows and highs a bit, and all this goes to Isotopazone 10. Here I do a mid-side EQ correction, then I use dynamic EQ to control the muddiness, then multiband compression, then mid-side saturation, then I work with the stereo, another corrective EQ and the maximizer. That's all. Now let's listen to this track.
I spontaneously get the conclusion that one day I will meet you and say, hey, I redesign
me know in the comments what do you think about this track and my workflow. Also subscribe to learn more about sound design and music production.